During America's longest government shutdown, millions went without pay, and regional VA offices locked their doors. But every member of Congress kept cashing a full government check protected by law while veterans waited for answers and urgent care. Congress paid while veterans denied VA claims. The shutdown scandal isn't just a headline, it's a question about who this country serves in a crisis, and what happens next demands your attention. Federal workers across the country found themselves caught in a sudden freeze. During the 2013 government shutdown, 16 days of gridlock left more than 400,000 essential employees working without pay, while another 380,000 were sent home, unable to do their jobs. 5 years later, the 2018 to 2019 shutdown stretched on for 35 days, the longest in U.S. history. National parks closed their gates, IRS call centers went silent, and passport offices shuttered, leaving families and travelers stranded. At airports, security lines grew longer as TSA agents reported for duty but stopped receiving paychecks. Food inspection routines were scaled back, and small business loans stalled, halting plans and payrolls in towns coast to coast. The impact rippled outward. Federal courts warned of impending closures, and scientific research projects went dormant as labs lost funding overnight. In every region, Americans who relied on government services faced uncertainty and delay. Yet the scale of the disruption wasn't just measured in lost wages or closed doors. The shutdown exposed the country's deep dependence on public servants, people who, without warning, were forced to choose between showing up to work unpaid or staying home and risking their livelihoods. As the crisis deepened, questions grew louder about who would bear the brunt of Washington's standstill and who by law would remain untouched. At the Department of Veterans Affairs, the shutdown brought a sudden halt to services veterans rely on every day. Regional benefits offices closed their doors, leaving veterans without access to in-person help for new claims, appeals, or urgent questions. The GI Bill hotline, a lifeline for student veterans navigating tuition and housing payments, went silent. For thousands, that meant no way to resolve errors or get answers about their education benefits. Career counseling programs, including transition assistance for service members returning to civilian life, were suspended. Veterans seeking guidance on employment, retraining, or rehabilitation found their appointments canceled with no timeline for rescheduling. Administrative support staff were furloughed, so routine processing of documents and outreach efforts stopped entirely. Even public affairs and press inquiries were left unanswered, adding to the confusion. In cemeteries, new headstone installations and non-essential memorial services paused, leaving families waiting for closure. While hospitals and clinics continued to operate under advance appropriations, the loss of these touchpoints created a sense of isolation for many veterans. With every phone line that went unanswered and every office that stayed dark, the promise of support felt increasingly out of reach. The shutdown did not just stall paperwork, it severed the daily connection between veterans and the system meant to serve them. Claims processing at the Department of Veterans Affairs ground nearly to a halt during the 2013 government shutdown. Before the funding lapse, VA staff completed about 16,000 claims each day. As appropriations ran out and over 7,800 claims processors were furloughed, that number plummeted to fewer than 1,400 daily. The backlog of unprocessed claims swelled by more than 12% in just over 2 weeks. With an extra 20,000 cases piling up for every week, the shutdown dragged on. Veterans waiting for disability, pension, or survivor benefits saw their files linger untouched, while new evidence submitted for appeals sat in unopened envelopes. Official reports from the Government Accountability Office and oversight hearings confirmed the sharp drop in output and the growing backlog. Inside the agency, the pressure was intense. One VA adjudicator, speaking on condition of anonymity, described the scramble to prioritize what little staff remained for the most urgent claims. We'd get unofficial guidance to push through what we could, but the message was clear. Approvals that required final review weren't going to happen until funding returned. Whistleblowers and watchdog reports stopped short of confirming a formal deny first policy, but the effect was the same for many veterans. Delays stretched from weeks into months. For those waiting on life-changing decisions, like a PTSD diagnosis or survivor benefit, the system's collapse meant more than paperwork. It meant another winter of uncertainty, medical bills unpaid, and families left in limbo, all while the number of unresolved cases kept climbing. The harm wasn't just statistical, it was measured in lost time, missed care, and the mounting sense that the system was designed to delay rather than deliver. The legal shield around congressional paychecks is rooted in the earliest days of the Republic. Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution guarantees that senators and representatives shall receive a compensation for their services, to be ascertained by law and paid out of the Treasury of the United States. This safeguard was designed to keep Congress independent from the President, ensuring that lawmakers could not be punished or rewarded with pay cuts or raises at the whim of the executive branch. Over 2 centuries later, that same clause means congressional salaries remain untouched, even as federal agencies grind to a halt and public workers face uncertainty. The 27th Amendment, ratified in 1992 after lying dormant since James Madison first proposed it in 1789, further locks in this protection. Its language is clear. No law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened. The intent was to prevent self-serving pay hikes, but its effect is sweeping. No immediate cuts or suspensions are allowed, even in times of national crisis. Any attempt to alter congressional pay takes effect only after the next election, rendering quick fixes impossible. A constitutional scholar explains that Congress's pay is funded by a permanent, automatic appropriation separate from the annual budget that covers most federal programs and salaries. During a shutdown, this means lawmakers' compensation continues uninterrupted, regardless of the fate of their staff or the millions relying on government services. While some members have tried to return their pay or donate it in protest, these gestures are symbolic. The law still requires the Treasury to issue every check. The system, built for independence, now stands as a stark symbol of privilege, insulating Congress from the very disruptions they help create. Robert M., a Gulf War veteran from North Carolina, counted out his remaining pills at the kitchen table as another week passed with no word from the VA. His disability claim had stalled after the regional office closed, and his antidepressant prescription was running low. With rent due in 3 days and no benefits check in sight, he began rationing his medication, breaking tablets in half to stretch them. His wife fielded calls from their landlord, who had already posted a notice on the door. The threat of eviction grew with each day the shutdown dragged on. Their daughter, once promised college counseling through the VA, watched her parents struggle to keep the lights on. Robert described the feeling as a kind of betrayal, serving his country, only to be left waiting in silence when help was needed most. For his family, the shutdown was not just a political standoff, it was a daily test of survival. Veterans groups stepped forward, channeling anger into action. The Disabled American Veterans and Veterans of Foreign Wars issued joint statements demanding that Congress forfeit its pay until every veteran receives the benefits they earned. Their calls echoed across news headlines and social media feeds, fueling a surge of public protest. The flashpoint came when wheelchair-bound veterans, joined by supporters, bypassed barricades at the closed World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. The image of aging servicemen reclaiming a monument built in their honor became a rallying cry. News outlets amplified the moment, and lawmakers faced a wave of scrutiny for their own protected paychecks. Advocacy leaders pressed for immediate relief and lasting reform, insisting that no elected official should be shielded from the consequences of a shutdown while veterans are left waiting. The outrage was no longer quiet or contained, it was national and impossible to ignore. During the 35-day government shutdown of 2018 to 2019, more than 400,000 federal workers went without pay, while members of Congress continued to receive their salaries as mandated by Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution and the 27th Amendment. VA claims processed per day dropped from 16,000 to just over 1,400, causing a backlog that grew by over 10%. Veterans face closed regional offices, offline hotlines, and suspended transition counseling. Whistleblower accounts and official reports confirm that systemic inefficiencies and deny-first practices intensified during the shutdown. While some lawmakers returned pay in protest, legal protections kept congressional compensation intact. What remains unknown is the full extent of veteran hardship, as some records and internal VA data remain undisclosed. The contrast between protected leadership pay and denied or delayed veteran benefits persists today. Until the legal framework changes, shutdowns will continue to expose a fundamental gap between the nation's promises and its practices. The evidence is clear: without reform, those who served remain at risk when government stops serving them.